Well, today, the country pauses to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and to close 6 decades after the civil rights leader's death, his impact is still felt today and his legacy still shines bright. This is not just a day of remembrance, but a call to action, a day on, not a day off, as we say, focus on service, justice, and continuing the work Dr. King started. Here with more is Kama Pierce, Chief Program Officer for the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. We are so glad to have you here with us today. What you guys do, really, this is what this day is all about. So when people hear Dr. King's words today, what do you think resonates with them most here in 2026?
His words are so important today, especially in this time in history, because what he was fighting for when he was alive are still issues that we are grappling with as an American nation and fighting for.
And so when we talk about Dr. King, we mostly speak about his words, right? The famous speeches. But what part of his work do you think gets overlooked that you want people who walk through the exhibits to sort of say, wow, this is something new that I didn't know?
I'm so glad you asked that. We actually redid the MLK gallery. It's called A Committed Life. And there is an original piece that we put together that a lot of people don't know, that towards the end of his life, he started really not just focusing on racism, but the interplay between racism, militarism, and poverty, and that the three are interdependent. And so we walk people through that maturity of his thinking and understanding that it's not just about racism, but we have to address all three of these, what he calls the three evils, in order to move forward as a nation.
And so we know MLK Day is a national day of service. Why do you think that distinction in particular was so important to Dr. King's legacy?
Because he understood that we were becoming a nation of the haves and have-nots. We always have been, and that we have to take a moment to help each other, regardless of your station in life, regardless of your parentage, regardless of your ethnicity. We need to be here as a human race to help and serve each other. And everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest citizen, can do something to help one another.
And I know you guys have events happening all throughout the day. You want people to come in and soak up all the history and the knowledge. How does the center take Dr. King's legacy and translate it into, these modern conversations about civil and human rights?
We do it, obviously our galleries go back and tell the history of the civil rights movement, even before the civil rights movement, and this very important man's impact. But we also have activities for everyone, young children. We have conversations. We partner with people. Today we're partnering with the Alliance Theater that will be there doing a performance at 11 to really bring his teachings and this history to life. Atlanta history is MLK history.
For sure. We were driving to church yesterday morning and my 5-year-old started talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I was just so impressed that, the daycare was already teaching those lessons. What gives you hope when you look at the next generation engaging with civil and human rights?
What gives me hope is that regardless of what history tells us of tough times, and we could be arguably in a tough time, human nature always prevails. Goodness prevails, people coming together prevails, and we have to remember that in history there are ups and downs, and we are going to prevail, and you want to be on the right side of history on this.
Yeah, that is so true. And we talked about it again. Atlanta was the cradle of Dr. King's leadership. How do you feel about the state of our city as it relates to living up to the vision?
The interplay between King and his legacy in Atlanta is strong. He was born here. He sat in his father's and his grandfather's church at Ebenezer Baptist Church. And when he passed, the leaders of Atlanta and the people of Atlanta take that very seriously. So we have lots of points in the city, and everything that we do, I think, is with that idea of the beloved community and King in heart. And that makes Atlanta a special place, especially on this day.
Last question, we have about 30 seconds. If you were to take away just one thing or an action or a mindset on this MLK Day, what should it be?
I'm not great at MLK's quotes, and so I won't say it exactly, but he definitely, at a certain point, when you are silent, that's a betrayal. And so this is not the time to be silent.
All right, Kama Pierce, we thank you so much for joining us today. We wish you guys a great event, and we hope the exhibits are just flooded with people today.